galera, é Tudo e Mais, o podcast que a gente fala sobre tudo e mais. Alright, guys, I'm not gonna do this in Portuguese, but it would be a little interesting to do a podcast in Portuguese. I might do it. I got a friend or two that they want to be on the podcast, so be on the lookout for that. But today, it's everything and more, right? The podcast in which we talk about everything and more. What we're gonna be talking about today is the Fermi Paradox. So I put out a poll on my Instagram, ENM Podcast, Everything and More Podcast on Instagram, ENM Podcast, and I asked, what do you guys want the next episode to be? Do you want it to be about Fermi Paradox or dinosaur extinctions, or how the dinosaurs went extinct? And to my surprise, it was 50-50. Half of the people voted Fermi Paradox, they want the next episode to be, and then half of the other people voted dinosaur extinction. So I am the tiebreaker, and I'm like, you know what? I think the Fermi Paradox is more interesting, and at least I know a little bit more about it, so I don't have to do as much research. And it is a really fun topic, and I think even the people who voted for it don't even know what it really is. It just sounds interesting because Fermi is kind of like an interesting word, right? So the Fermi Paradox is pretty much saying, where are the other aliens? It doesn't make sense. The universe is so big, let alone the Milky Way galaxy is so big, that it's highly unlikely that there aren't other aliens, let alone aliens we haven't came in contact with, right? It's highly unlikely that there hasn't been aliens in this within the past couple 100 million, billions, trillions of years, not trillions, but billions of years, that haven't colonized the galaxy yet. So that's where the paradox lies, is where are the aliens? It makes no sense. So let's go over the numbers that says, it's highly, highly, highly likely that there's other aliens out there or intelligent life, right? So the universe, let's put things in this perspective. The universe is 90 billion light years in diameter. So a lot of you guys might not know what a light year is. Let me describe it real quick, right? When you turn on your flashlight, and it seems like the light goes from the flashlight to the wall or wherever you're pointing. It seems like it gets there instantaneously. But no, the light travels at the speed of light, right? It travels at a really fast speed, which is the fastest speed something can travel. It travels at that speed. And if you let that light travel for 1 year, the distance it covers is a light year, right? Duh. So you just times the speed of light by 365 days and you get a light year. And so the universe is 90 billion light years in diameter. So I did the conversion myself. I wanted to put things in perspective because people don't really think about distance in light years. So we live in America. We tend to think of things more in miles or kilometers if you guys want to do the conversion. So the universe, 90 billion light years in diameter, converts to 530 sextillion miles. Yeah. Sextillion miles. How crazy of a number is that? The universe is extremely large. So let me go over what sextillion means, right? You have 100, thousand, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, and then sextillion. And then obviously you have septillion, octillion, nonillion, dectillion, undectillion, duodectillion, and then so on, so on. But anyways, the universe is really large, right? Sextillion, that's 21 zeros, if I'm not mistaken. 21 or 23 zeros. 530 sextillion miles. That's extremely large, right? And then just to put things into perspective again, Earth, if you look up on Wikipedia or Google or whatever, Earth is only 25,000 miles in circumference, right? And we think of Earth as being extremely large, and that Earth is just like, it's not even a grain of sand in the universe, if you really think about it. It's like less than a grain of sand. It's probably like, it's like 1,000th of a grain of sand or something. I'm not going to do the math, but it's so small in the grand scheme of things. And keeping that in mind, in the universe, there's 200 billion galaxies. That's an extremely large number of galaxies, right? And we live in the Milky Way galaxy. So each galaxy contains from 100 billion to 1 trillion stars. So that's a lot of stars out there, a lot of stars. And I was wondering, I did this research myself. I didn't really come up with the numbers myself, but I was wondering, okay, so if there's 200 billion galaxies and then each galaxy has 100 billion to 1 trillion stars, how many planets are in the universe, right? Just from those numbers, right? Because a planet needs a star to harbor life, because that's where we get all of our energy from the sun, right? I mean, right? Because plants get their energy from the sun, animals get their energy from plants, and we get our energy from plants or animals or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, all the energy that we use, that we harbor in our planet, comes from the sun. And so, or wind or whatever, but ultimately it comes from the sun. And so a planet needs a star to harbor life. And each galaxy has 100 billion to 1 trillion stars. And I was thinking to myself, how many planets are there? And I come across a YouTube video, and here's another large number. The YouTube video says underestimate of how many planets are in the universe are around 10 septillion planets. 10 septillion planets. Let's go over again the counting, right? You have 100,000, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, septillion, or a sextillion, and then septillion. So that's a lot of zeros and a lot of planets out there. And trillions of those planets are habitable, right? And then what constitutes as a planet being habitable? Well, it has to be kind of like the planet Earth. It has to be, it can't be, for a planet to be habitable, it can't be too close to the sun, right? Or else it's going to be too hot to harbor life, or, water is going to melt at that point. And it can't be too far away from the sun, because it's going to be too cold. Water will freeze, and it'll just be too cold for life. At least, that's what I hear scientists say, that, planets have to be in this habitable zone. It can't be too far away from the sun, but it can't be too close to the sun. But if you think about it, that's to harbor life as we know it here on planet Earth, right? But what if life can exist in extremely hot conditions or extremely cold conditions? And if that's the case, it'd be habitable. I mean, there'd be even more than trillions of planets habitable in the universe. So, because when we look at all this, we're like, okay, if humans can survive in this zone that's X distance close to the sun and Y distance far from the sun, but it has to be in that sweet spot. But who knows? Maybe there's, this life source out there in the ether or in space somewhere that's like they live in extremely hot conditions or extremely cold conditions. I don't know, but I mean, I'm not a biologist, so I'm not too knowledgeable with this information, or I don't know, physicists, biologists. I don't know what type of people would be researching what conditions humans can live under. But anyway, I find it really interesting that the planet has to be at a certain spot to harbor life. It can't be too close and it can't be too far. I kind of disagree with that, because who knows? You see in movies, but I mean, movies don't mean anything at the end of the day to the scientific community. But anyways, so there's 10 septillion planets out there, but we're gonna focus on the closest galaxy to us, right? Because there's billions of galaxies, 200 billion galaxies, give or take a couple billion, right? And so we're just gonna put things in perspective, that it's extremely hard for us to reach another galaxy. Let me put things into perspective. Let me tell you what I mean. So the closest galaxy to us is called the Andromeda Galaxy. It's 2.5 million light years away. That's extremely far away, guys. The fastest speed ever reached in space was 37,000 miles per hour. Right? Really, really fast. I'm assuming that speed was probably with no one inside. It was probably just like a drone or a robot or something. And then assuming we come up with some crazy technological advancement, let's round up that number to 100,000 miles per hour. Even faster, even crazier. At this speed, for us to get to the nearest galaxy going at 100,000 miles per hour, for us to get to this closest galaxy of 2.5 million light years away, at this speed it would take us around 17,000 years to get to that galaxy. So with the current technology that we know it, I mean, I just can't picture even a highly advanced civilization outside of the Milky Way galaxy. I can't picture them being intergalactic civilization, meaning that they conquer galaxies from around the universe, right? Kind of like the type of stuff you see in What's that one movie, Star Trek or Guardians of the Galaxy. I just don't see um, a civilization out there in the universe that can travel from one galaxy to another and do it consistently. But with that said, I don't think it's impossible. I think of a logical way for us to travel to other galaxies would be if we could somehow make and open at our will wormholes, right? Wormholes are pretty much ways for us. It's pretty much you going from point A to point B. Let's say point A to point B is, let's say point A to point B is 1 light year away, right? You shrink that distance 1 light year to, like, let's say something like 1 mile. There's a wormhole in Interstellar, right? That's how they get to the nearest, not, I don't know, like this nearest planet that they're looking for planets to harbor life, right? They enter a wormhole, and a wormhole pretty much shrinks the distance. And I think it was Einstein that discovered the concept of a wormhole. I'm not sure on that. Don't quote me. But if we could somehow figure out a way to open and close wormholes and place the entrance or the exit wherever we want in space, that would be a way of traveling to other galaxies. But right now, that's pretty much science fiction. Whereas if we want to travel to other galaxies, we'd first have to colonize our galaxy, right? We'd first have to harbor 100% of energy from our sun, and then other stars, and then I'll talk about more about that later. So instead of just focusing on the 200 billion galaxies in our universe, let's just focus on the Milky Way galaxy, right? Because we just established that it's really, really hard to do intergalactic travel. It'd be a tremendous amount of energy. It'd take a tremendous amount of time, and it's right now it's pretty much science fiction. Like, I can't think of any fathomable way, or man, I'm trying to sound fancy right here. I can't think of any tangible way for us to travel intergalactically. But with that said, let's just focus on the Milky Way. The Milky Way has 400 billion stars. It's a lot of stars just in the Milky Way. People tend to think of the Milky Way as, it's just this one little small galaxy, but nah, there's a lot of stars in the Milky Way. So around 20 billion sun-like stars in the Milky Way, right? So I'm assuming that's 20 billion stars that are around the shape or the size of our sun. And then, so experts estimate that around 1/5 of them have a planet in the habitable zone. So 20 billion sun-like stars, right? And 1/5 of those stars have a habitable planet in the habitable zone, as we discussed. It's not too close to the sun, and it's not too far away. It's in the sweet spot, right? And I just went over my little theory that I think life can exist where, if the planets are too close or too far. I think we're just closing our minds to what we're comfortable with. But I think life can harbor outside of that zone. Anyways, experts estimate that around 1/5 of those 20 billion sun-like stars have a planet in the habitable zone. So if only 0.1% of those planets had life, there will be 1 million planets with life just in the Milky Way galaxy. That's pretty much the Fermi Paradox. Right there, guys. Pretty much. Pretty much saying 1 million planets with life just in the Milky Way galaxy. If you just say there's barely any chance of these planets having life, over 1 million planets. So let's keep talking. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Right, that's pretty old. Here's a quick little tangent. If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, what happened 13.9 billion years ago? Think about that for a second. Just a quick little thought experiment. I know there's this really cool Futurama episode where they build a time machine that can only go forward. It can't go backwards. It can only go forward in time. It can't go backwards. So they go forward, and they're like, and then they go too forward, and like, oh my God, we have to go backwards, but they can't go backwards. So they keep going forward in time to try to find a civilization who's created a time machine that can go backward in time. So they keep going forward, forward, forward in time. Eventually, they find a civilization that has successfully created a machine that can go backwards in time. But it was like filled with a bunch of like sexy ladies and stuff, right? And then like the professor and Fry are super excited, and then Bender's like, I hate you guys, because they were just in a planet with a bunch of robots, and they didn't want to stay there, but Bender did. So now it's kind of like payback. Anyway, that's a tangent of a tangent. So they find a civilization with the time machine that could go backward in time. Bender said, F you guys, we're not going to stay here. And so they go forward in time, pretty much infinite amount of years, until the universe contracts and explodes, right? And everything ends. And one interesting theory that at least they showed in the cartoon is that they kept going so much forward in time that after the universe exploded and finished and ended, after the universe ended, it started over. So that's how they got back to where they wanted to go back in time. They went so much forward in time that they ended up going back and keep going forward in time. It's kind of like a circle, right? It's I thought that was really cool. You know, you just keep going. It's pretty much we're pretty much going through iterations of the same movie, so to say, right? I thought that was cool. But that's just one theory of what happened 13.9 billion years ago, or we're just kind of in this loop that keeps playing over and over and over again. I don't know. There's no way of knowing, but you guys think about what happened 13.9 billion years ago. With that said, Earth is 4 billion years old. So there's been trillions of chances for life to have a go, right? To try to develop a civilization, try to become intelligent. So we have to keep in mind, what are the different types of civilizations? There's 3 types of civilizations. I forget who came up with this. I think it's the Kardashev scale. So pretty much the types of civilization is how much energy we can harbor from the sun. So type 1 civilization is a planetary civilization. It can use and store all the energy it reaches from its parent star. For us, it would be the sun. Right? So we can harbor 100% of the energy from the sun. That would be a type 1 civilization. And then you have type 2 civilization, which is called a stellar civilization. It can harness all of the energy from its parent star. Okay, hold up. I messed up. Sorry. Let's restart real quick over. Type 1 is a planetary civilization. It can use and store all the energy it reaches from the parent star. So we harbor all the energy that reaches to planet Earth. That's not 100% of the energy from the sun. We can just harbor 100% of the energy that reaches planet Earth. It's different. Now type 2 is a stellar civilization. It can harness all of the energy from the sun. Right? So not just the energy that reaches Earth, but it can harness 100%. So the energy that goes to Mars, Neptune, Pluto, all that, we can harness all that energy, right? And it's kind of science fiction, but there is theoretically a way of doing it. You can look up this on your own if you want to, but it's called a Dyson sphere. It's pretty much a theoretical structure built around the sun to harness all of its energy, right? It's pretty interesting. I definitely dig up some more on it, but if you're more interested into it. But there is a way of us harnessing the energy of the sun. So that's type 2. And then type 3 is a galactic civilization. That means we can control energy on the scale of its entire host galaxy. So we can control pretty much the energy of the whole galaxy, pretty much, right? We can control the energy from the sun, or the nearest star, the closest star to that. It's pretty much what I think it is pretty much you just build a whole bunch of Dyson spheres around a whole bunch of stars, and you can harness all of that energy, allowing you to essentially colonize the galaxy, which is kind of like stuff you see in movies, which would be pretty cool. But I mean, honestly, in my opinion, we are probably millions and millions and millions of years from ever reaching that. I don't think it's impossible. I just think we're really far away from it. And so if you're thinking, oh, what does this 1, 2, and 3 mean? What does these types mean? Well, there's actually an equation. These aren't just, theoretical numbers that people have come up with. There's an equation that this Kadash guy came up with. And it's The equation is K, right? The Kardashev's constant with type 1, 2, or 3. It's K equals log 10p minus 6 over 10, where K is the constant, right? 1, 2, or 3. And then P is the power that we use in watts. So if you're wondering what type of civilization humanity's at right now, well, we're at 0.73. We're not even at 1 yet. We're at 0.73. We should be at 1 in a couple of hundred years, right? So we'll eventually get to 1, just not now, if we don't kill each other off and we don't mess up the planet, right? Which kind of brings up to us to our next point, but we'll get there later. So if we were to build spaceships that could sustain populations in other planets for 1,000 years, we could colonize the whole galaxy in 2 million years. Right? This is really is possible. The Milky Way galaxy is huge with millions and billions of planets that could harbor life. And then the Milky Way galaxy is also pretty old compared to the universe, right? It's 13.5 billion years old. So, since other civilizations have had a significant more time than us to develop, where's all the aliens? Right? Milky Way galaxy is 13.5 billion years old. Where are all the aliens? Now, let's be fair. In the beginning of the Big Bang, right, planets, the universe was just extremely hot. It was extremely chaotic. So, of course, there have to be, a wait time and a period for us, or not for us, for the universe to cool down and become a little bit more controlled. Because in the beginning, it was very, very chaotic, very hot, very crazy, bunch of explosions left and right. And so we have to wait, billions and billions of years for it to cool down. But with that said, other civilizations before us, if there's been other civilizations before us, have had significant more time to, colonize the galaxy, planetary, whatever. And so, where are they at? Where are they at, though? Why haven't there been aliens who colonize a significant portion of the galaxy or use an extreme amount of energy that we haven't been able to pick up on, right? Why don't they communicate with us? How many intelligent species are out in the universe? To answer all this, we first got to talk about filters. So, what's a filter? Well, the easy way of describing it is a filter is pretty much something that's really hard for life to overcome. So, right, let's talk about a couple of filters. I think, probably the most obvious filter right now that's threat to us would be something like nuclear war. A lot of people are scared of nuclear war with Trump and North Korea. That would be a filter, right? Nuclear war, biological warfare. Those will be filters that would be hard for life to overcome, right? Because if nuclear war happens, all life is wiped out and we have to start from scratch. So that would be a filter. Biological warfare, global warming, global cooling, right? The ice age, global warming would be a filter. Another interesting filter would be a geomagnetic reversal. It's pretty much where the poles shift, causing all sorts of chaos, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and so on. I thought that was interesting. Or other filters would be cosmic catastrophes. So supernovas, black holes when the star collapses into itself, or the opposite when a star explodes, asteroids, etc. Right? I think asteroids could have been a great filter for dinosaurs. Right? We had to start from scratch. We didn't just keep evolving. We had to start from scratch. Or planetary catastrophes inside of the planets, such as supervolcanoes, which I heard something like supervolcanoes. It's like these huge volcanoes that once one goes off, they all go off, and it's just crazy after that. So supervolcanoes, massive earthquakes and tsunamis, etc. And then I think this actually could be most likely one of the most likely filters for life to overcome is artificial intelligence. Yeah, this is a crazy one when we really think about it. Artificial intelligence could be a filter that other intelligent civilizations tried to implement in the past, and once they implement it, the artificial intelligence takes over the planet and destroys all. But then I guess the counter argument for that is, if artificial intelligence takes over the planet, destroys all life, why doesn't artificial intelligence seek out to colonize the galaxy itself? It's kind of like if you've seen Avengers: Age of Ultron, right? You have that. I mean, I'm not even gonna say spoiler alert. I'm just gonna assume everybody's seen it. You have the bad guy, pretty much the antagonist. I think that's what it's called, the bad guy. That's the fancy way of saying bad guy. He's an artificial intelligence robot, right? And so his goal is to wipe out humanity and let life have another go at it. He says humanity's corrupt, we all suck, so let's let evolution have another go at it. So if artificial intelligence wipes out life, why doesn't artificial intelligence seek out to colonize the galaxy or whatever? Because artificial intelligence can learn much faster than we can, right? Think about it this way. If, let's say, we're on the grand scale of things, let's say you have a chicken and then you have us, right? Let's say we're 10 times smarter than the chicken. And it's kind of like exponentially going up, right? If we're only so much smarter than a chicken, but artificial intelligence can be so much smarter than us. I know that it makes sense at all, but I'm getting it from a TED talk that I watched about Sam Harris. Sam Harris, a neurosurgeon from Stanford, he has a TED talk and he pretty much speaks out against artificial intelligence, saying why we shouldn't pursue artificial intelligence, just for the same reasons you see in movies that artificial intelligence could take over the planet. There's been countless of intelligent millionaires, billionaires to speak out against artificial intelligence, such as Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Sam Harris, and so on. And so artificial intelligence could be a filter, right? Because humans or other civilizations would say, here's a way for us to save time, save energy, save resources. Instead of us doing all the hard work, let's let AI do everything for us. Next thing you know, AI starts thinking about itself. It gets pissed off with humans for some reason, destroys all life. It becomes the alpha male, the apex predator, and it just destroys all life. And so that could be a filter. But in my opinion, the biggest filter for other civilizations and for life to overcome is the ego, right? Because if we're talking about a civilization that has the ambition and the drive to get to the point where we are right now, right? We're talking about ego. The ego is what drives us to be better. And so, but the ego comes at a price, right? That means we want to get paid for what we do. And so, the ego comes with jealousy, it comes with hatred, it comes with bigotry, it comes with all these negative things, right? But it also comes with positives such as innovation, technology, whatever. We're not going to get too much into spirituality of it. We're kind of just talking about the practical terms of the ego. And so the ego can cause humans to be extremely hateful towards each other, and it can cause us to pretty much mess up the earth, use all of our resources. And we're kind of seeing that with climate change right now, whether you believe it or not. We're kind of like eating all of the earth's resources. We're eating up the Amazon rainforest, we're eating up the ocean, we're doing all this bad thing to the planet, and we're pretty much a cancer to planet Earth. Whether you agree with me or not, I'm sorry. Humans are a cancer to planet Earth. Does that mean humans should die? No, of course not. I'm not stupid. All I'm saying is that humans should learn, better ways of not necessarily trying to be the apex predator or the alpha in planet Earth, but kind of coexist with everything, right? If one species in the planet Earth would die off and planet Earth would be, would flourish, it'd be the human species, right? You've heard of that thing. If the bees die, we die. If X, Y, and Z die, we die. Even like if wolves, I remember they took away wolves from Yosemite or Yellowstone or something like that, and then the ecosystem was all messed up, all out of whack, because you didn't have that predator eating the prey, and then you had overpopulation in deer and all that stuff, and then they reintroduced the wolf, and then everything was back to normal. Everything was flourishing. And so that could be it. If you have a civilization that's as intelligent as we are, as smart and as driven, that civilization could eventually eat the planet of its resources. It's inevitable for that civilization to eat up the planet's all resources and just let that planet go dry. I mean, that could be one theory. So, last thing I want to talk about when talking about the Fermi Paradox and why we haven't seen any aliens or where are all the aliens is we got to think about this. How hard is it for life to develop? Because right now, nobody knows how life first developed, right? We all know that humans, animals, well, humans are animals, but animals, fish, mammals, reptiles, birds, plants, trees, flowers, we all evolved from the same microorganism, right? That was life. That's where we all evolved from. We're all from the same source. Question is, how did that source come to be? What's the difference between that source and a rock? We all know how evolution works. Evolution is a genetic mutation in the DNA that proves to be advantageous to the environment that that animal or flower is in. And it works through natural selection, that genetic mutation being advantageous to the environment, as I just went over. But how does that work with the origination of life? How does life originate originally? Think about that. If you want, you want to go for it, do some Google search. Let me know if you find out anything interesting. Shoot me a DM at ENM Podcast on Instagram because it's really interesting. Nobody really knows how life originated. And is it to the point where it's so rare that we are the only living that not we as humans but planet Earth is the only planet in the universe out of, like, what did I say? Hold up, I got it written right here. Planet Earth, out of the 10 septillion planets out there, that we are the one planet that harbors life. Is that a possibility? That it's so hard to harbor life that you have to have such extreme specific conditions that one planet out of 10 septillion harbors life? It's interesting to think about. How hard is it for life to develop? You know, evolution works a certain way, but where does evolution start off? Where does life originate from? Is it God? Is it random as heck? Who knows? Right? So that could be something that's really, really, really hard, and you have to have really specific conditions for it to start off. And I don't know if there's been any signs of life in Mars. I'd have to do some research, but it could be there's been signs of life in Mars. Or I think there might have been signs of water in Mars. I'm not sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean life. But yeah. Interesting, guys. Interesting. Hope you guys learned a lot. You know, a podcast like this is pretty much made to fiddle with your mind, to get you thinking of, are we really alone in the universe, or is there millions of other civilizations out there who are 10 times smarter than us, you know, or whatever. And another interesting thing to think about is, so to say, let's say there is a civilization out there who's colonized the galaxy and can intergalactically travel, whatever it may be, right? They're a type 3 civilization, or even larger than a type 3. Imagine if an alien race like that came to talk to us. Would we even begin to understand what they're saying? Would we be able to comprehend how they think, right? Because imagine you try to explain to your dog or to a chicken or to a cow, whatever. You try to explain to animals how our civilization works. They wouldn't even begin to comprehend. They'd just be like, dude, relax. I'm just trying to sleep. I'm just trying to eat. Chill, right? What if a civilization like that came try to explain their way of life to us? Would we even be able to comprehend what they're saying? I don't know. Just interesting to think about. And would they abuse us for resources or for labor, for slaves? They could. If they're so smart, they could easily do it. Interesting things to think about, guys. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting, and I'll see you guys next time. If you guys got any questions or suggestions, hit me up at ENM Podcast on Instagram and everything and more. And peace out, fellas. Keep it pimping.